The Royal Rumble has featured some great matches, in addition to the Rumble match itself. And then there are these abominations. Here are 15 of the worst Royal Rumble matches in history, in no particular order. Number 1. The Islanders vs the Young Stallions. 1988's Royal Rumble was a successful experiment, but this match had no place on the card, let alone as a 2 out of 3 falls match in the main event. While the Young Stallions Paul Roma and Jim Powers were the creme de la creme of enhancement talent, they were still enhancement talent. The Islanders weren't tag team championship material, but they were certainly no jobbers. Perhaps the WWF treated this TV edition of the Rumble like a Saturday night's main event, but it's hard to imagine why the company didn't make this a star-studded affair from top to bottom, just to stick it to Jim Crockett Promotions. Number 2. Brutus Beefcake vs the Genius. Hulk Hogan's former pal Brutus the Barber Beefcake engaged in a no-stakes match with the WWF's master of the spoken word, Lanny Poffo. This match went far past any human being's tolerance for pain, running an agonizing 11 minutes and 7 seconds. Even worse, it ended in a double disqualification after Mr. Perfect ran in. Whoever put this one on the card certainly wasn't a genius. Number 3. Koko Beware vs the Mountie. Both Koko Beware and the Mountie are good workers, but there's no reason this match had to air on the show or run over 9 minutes. While the WWF roster had thinned somewhat from the glory days of the 80s, there was still a number of superstars who could have squared off against the Mountie. The match's only saving grace was that Vince Russo wasn't around to make it a Frankie on a forklift match. Number 4. The Beverly Brothers vs the Bushwhackers. Think of the 2 worst teams in WWF history and you have the Beverly Brothers and the Bushwhackers. Both teams had successful reigns in previous incarnations, with the Beverly Brothers adding some much needed life into the AWA as the Destruction Crew, and the Bushwhackers bloodying up opponents as the Sheep Herders. While the Bushwhackers undoubtedly gained more exposure in the WWF they did than anywhere else as the Sheep Herders, their work rate developed to that of 2 lobotomized chimpanzees. With the Beverly Brothers and the Bushwhackers incapable of good matches in the WWF, the decision to pair them off against one another could only have been a cruel joke played by Vince McMahon on the fans. Number 5. Razor Ramon vs Irwin R. Shyster. The WWF was treading water in 1994, and it showed it with this match. Here, IRS had repossessed Razor's gold chains, prompting the bad guy to seek redress in the squared circle. While IRS cut funny promos, his style clashed with Razor's, making this an awkward match. This match was used mostly to set up the Shawn Michaels vs Razor Ramon ladder match at WrestleMania 10, with Michaels interfering on IRS's behalf. Still, the match itself was a complete dud. Number 6. The Undertaker vs Yokozuna. The WWF did a great job portraying Yokozuna as an unstoppable monster, maintaining an iron grip on the WWF Championship. However, The Undertaker seemed up to the challenge, so fans expected an excellent match, and a likely win since Taker and Yoko were scheduled for a casket match. Yokozuna was a good worker, especially for a man his size, so the match itself started off well. However, the finish destroyed what could have been a fondly remembered bout. Here Mr. Fuji summoned Bam Bam Bigelow, Crush, the Great Kabuki and Junichiro Tenryu to beat down The Undertaker, but even they couldn't handle the dead man. That is until Mr. Fuji stole Taker's urn, robbing him of his powers. With the added help of Double J Jeff Jarrett, Adam Bomb, Diesel and the Head Shrinkers, Yokozuna was able to put The Undertaker into the casket, winning the match. The craziness was just beginning, however, as smoke poured out of Taker's casket and the casket exploded. The Undertaker's face appeared on screen, vowing to return as what looked like a body ascended to the rafters. Even by WWF standards, this was ridiculous. Number 7. The 1995 Royal Rumble. This Rumble suffered from 2 problems: a shortened period between entrants and a lack of worthy competitors. Typically, 2 minutes or 90 seconds elapsed before a new competitor was called to the Rumble. However, this year saw it was shortened to 60 seconds. Worse yet, the participants were a veritable who's that of wrestling, filled with glorified enhancement talent such as Mantar, Kwang, Eli and Jacob Blue, the team of Well Done and Aldo Montoya. As a result, Shawn Michaels' win made him look like he'd just beat a bunch of 3rd graders. Number 8. China vs Ivory. What could have been a good match ended with a screwy ending as China suffered a kayfabe neck injury just minutes into the match. Ivory would cover China to win the women's championship, but the real disgrace occurred when Jerry Lawler left the announce table to check on Ivory, acting as if this was a legitimate injury. This curious booking decision was seen as tasteless by the fans, who remembered Owen Hart's real-life death at 1999's Over the Edge, and the somber reaction from the announcers Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler. Number 9. Scott Steiner vs Triple H. The WWE was shocked when its ratings didn't jump following the demise of WCW and ECW. This led to the WWE bringing in former WCW stars such as Goldberg and Scott Steiner to hopefully boost their ratings. Unfortunately, with Scott Steiner, the WWE had a wrestler with the mobility of a vintage WWF LJN figure. Triple H had his work cut out for him, particularly in carrying Steiner for over 18 minutes during the match. That only led to a screwjob disqualification win for Steiner. Number 10. Tori Wilson vs Dawn Marie. This match saw Tori and Dawn Marie engaged in the battle of the stepdaughter versus stepmother, after Dawn Marie seduced Tori's dad Al Wilson and married him. Sadly, Dawn Marie kayfabe croaked Al Wilson after their honeymoon gave Mr. Wilson a kayfabe fatal heart attack. This match was a display of how Tori had no business being in the ring, a lesson the WWE ignored when it focused on an entire division of semi-talented, at best, lingerie models rather than the women who could wrestle. Number 11. Brock Lesnar vs Hardcore Holly. The story behind this match was that Hardcore Holly was looking for revenge after Lesnar broke Holly's neck during a 2002 episode of SmackDown. The accidental injury was incorporated into the storyline, with Holly looking to capture Brock Lesnar's WWF Championship. However, Lesnar easily dispatched Holly, making this match an afterthought better featured on SmackDown rather than on pay-per-view. Number 12. The Undertaker vs Heidenreich. You certainly can't fault Heidenreich for taking whatever opportunity the WWE gave him, whether it was getting a shot against The Undertaker or being put in as Animal's tag team partner in a reworked Legion of Doom. Still, the WWE had no business putting Heidenreich in a match with Taker as his work was awful, and this was certainly a low point in Rumble history. Number 13. Mickie James vs Ashley. This match was used to set up the Trish Stratus vs Mickie James bout at WrestleMania 22, with James showing her true colours by telling Trish she loved her before the match. James put in good effort, but Ashley had the in-ring ability of a dead fish. Number 14. The Boogeyman vs JBL. A chief complaint of WWE fans was the company putting matches on pay-per-view that were better left on television. This match was a good example, with JBL having to wrestle the worm-filled Boogeyman. While we still have fond memories of the Boogeyman's interaction with WWE Hall of Famer Donald Trump at WrestleMania 23, he didn't belong anywhere near a ring unless he was setting it up. And number 15. The 2014 Royal Rumble. This is the Rumble that showed fans that WWE still ignores the fans, shoving whomever they want down the fans' throats. Case in point, Batista, who returned only to get booed out of the building after winning the Rumble. The once popular star had been replaced by stars like CM Punk and Daniel Bryan as their favourites, but Punk got tossed out and Bryan didn't even compete in the match. Well guys, there you have it, the 15 worst matches in Royal Rumble history. Are there any you'd like to add to the list? Write in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.